Chapter 10. Fevers, Malaria and Others. Case of a mysterious fever which occurs in Africa but is rare in England. Patient, young lady of 17, mysteriously stricken, very weak, temperature 105. MD called in, said if recovery took place at all, the victim would be ill for 6 months and then would be 9 months convalescent. Patient's father, a believer in urine therapy, sent for me. At first I found the victim difficult to deal with, but she finally consented to a urine fast plus plain water. On the 6th day after she had been stricken, her temperature was still 105, and she was growing rapidly emaciated, her urine being thick, foul, and concentrated. But 24 hours after starting my treatment, the temperature had dropped to 101 and the urine was clearer. In 3 days, the temperature was down to 97, and in 5 days to 95. Patient bright and lively, all was going well. Doctor much puzzled. Fast was broken at the end of 18 days. The patient's skin was as clear as that of a child. Within a few days of breaking the fast, she was up and doing and feeling perfectly well. She continued the use of her own urine and has thrived upon it. Some 16 years ago she married and had 3 children in the first 10 years. Malaria. This is an infectious disease characterized by paroxysms of intermittent fever, each consisting of a cold and a hot and a perspiring stage. Between the paroxysms, the victim appears comparatively well. According to Materia Medica, all forms of malaria are due to parasites living in the blood. Mosquitoes are infected by sucking human blood and in turn infect human beings by biting them. The troublesome and distressing feature of malaria, which the allopaths suppress, with quinine, is that when once contracted, it occurs again and again, for under the usual orthodox treatment it merely goes into latency instead of being totally eradicated. Under urine therapy, however, it is cured once and for all. So far, I have never had a case which did not clear up in 10 days or less by dint of fasting on urine and plain water. Mr. Q, athletic type, very temperate and a small eater, contracted malaria out east, had it for 3 years. During the year before I saw him in 1920 had suffered from 36 attacks. He dosed himself regularly with quinine, finally cured himself completely with a urine fast lasting 10 days, no more quinine, has never had another attack and has kept in fine health by adhering to his temperate habits and freely partaking of the water of life. Blackwater fever. Case related to me by the erstwhile victim, Army man, Major, found by natives in the backwoods to be in a state of delirium due to blackwater fever. They cured him by fasting him for 10 days by the applying of packs, and by inducing him to take his own urine and plain water. I mention this to stress that I am not the discoverer of urine therapy. In this chapter, I have limited myself to reciting only one case history of the various fevers mentioned, merely because to do otherwise would be to enlarge the bulk of this book to unwieldy proportions. I will now conclude with some remarks about fever in general and acute diseases attended with fever. When doctors try to bring down a patient's temperature by unnatural means, they are frustrating nature and may be endangering the patient's life or at best laying up seeds for future troubles. A fever is really a curative process on the part of nature to burn up certain toxins in the body. Oh yes, we hear of the miraculous temperature-reducing effects of wonder drugs for pneumonia, but we do not hear so much of the many people who die of heart trouble after the fever has thus been miraculously cured. Experience has taught me that there is only one safe way to treat a fever, which being a curative process is neither incurable nor need prove fatal if rightly handled. The modus operandi will now have become so familiar to the reader that it need not be repeated here. I need merely say that not only have I never seen a failure with the urine fast plus tap water therapy, all the urine passed should be drunk, but that the fall of temperature has taken place within any time from 36 to 72 hours, followed by a complete recovery within a few days. As to why the urine is so thick, foul, and scanty in cases of fever, that is not the result of the fever itself, but of the condition in the body, the ill forces, so to say, which cause the fever. The state of the urine is the result of the loss of valuable salts, tissues, etc. from the body, and largely explains the great weakness of the patient, his lightheadedness, rambling nightmares, and so on. It also explains the long convalescence and bad after effects in the case of patients who have been treated in the orthodox suppressive manner. The rational method of avoiding all this is urine therapy, so that the lost tissue may be replaced. I have proved it again and again to be successfully accomplished in diphtheria, chickenpox, scarlet fever, influenza, rheumatic fever, and other acute disorders where the temperature is high, and there have been none of those baneful and chronic after effects which so often accrue after wrongly treating scarlet fever or rheumatic fever, all of which are due to suppressive measures. End of chapter.